Hey, Forge fans, it's the Forge Audio Network, and we are focusing on Forge. We're going to check in with Adam Jenkins, who's a soccer commentator with One Soccer. We're going to hear from Forge FC head coach and technical director Bobby Smyrniotis, and we're going to hear from Tristan Henry, goalkeeper for Forge FC. We are here in our Hamilton studios, which also doubles as the cat room in my home. Yes, the cats have their own room. It'd be weird if they didn't. And Forge FC coming off what the club has called their worst half of football since Forge FC's inception. So 3.5 years, worst half they've ever played. That was that first half against CF Montreal in the quarterfinal of the Canadian Championship. Forge went on to lose that match 3-0. The second half, Forge was better. They battled, but ultimately it just wasn't enough. I mean, to be able to come back from that kind of deficit on the road against an MLS club like Montreal, who is the best MLS club, Canadian MLS club at the moment, it was just too tall of a task for Forge. But they can reset, refocus on domestic play, and on their 2020 Canadian Championship final, which will be held next Saturday against Toronto FC at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. But we're not going to jump ahead. In fact, that's been a theme this week. Not jumping ahead. Coach Bobby has instructed his guys, not that they needed it, but just a reminder, they have a game against Edmonton coming up on Tuesday on the road against an Edmonton squad that, yes, if we look at the table, they are at the bottom, but they have given clubs trouble all season. And I know it sounds funny to say, but they've been able to pick up points in spots no one expected them to. And that could have to do with the fact that teams might be overlooking Edmonton. They're a young squad, a lot of players getting time that they wouldn't have maybe gotten in other clubs, and they're taking the advantage of it. And listen, they're playing for their jobs. Coaches are playing for everyone is playing for something here, playing for pride. Whatever the case is, these are professionals, and they're at home. Very difficult place to play for a visiting team. And Forge, this, you don't want to say must win because, I mean, it's not a must win in a literal sense. But based on what happened last game against Montreal, and the fact that Forge was coming off their best performance in a long time against Halifax, where they won in Halifax 4-0, it just, we've said this before, number one rule of sports, it's never as bad or as good as it seems. And I mean, what an example. Maybe one of the best games we've seen Forge play against Halifax, and their worst the following week. It's the nature of the sport, and you don't expect Forge to overlook Edmonton at all, but just to make sure, the club is just emphasizing. And there's a lot of media attention too. You know, I spent time down at Tim Hortons Field watching training, talking to the guys. There's more media there than usual from media outlets that have never covered the CPL before. Why? Because Forge is playing Toronto FC in a little over a week. So it's hard not to get caught up in all of that. And Forge is going to do their best to stay focused on Edmonton. And that is was the emphasis from Coach Bobby, who I spoke to. And here's what he had to say about this week's training following a very disappointing loss against Montreal.
I think we had an excellent training session today, to be honest. Wednesday wasn't an easy one for us, not with the result, but mostly with the performance. But I think the guys understand that, and they've come out today and they've been excellent in training.
So how do you take lessons from that, but also look ahead to the next game? Like, I know you don't want to focus on the last game, but you need parts of that to get better as well. So what's the balance there?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. If you look at each and every player, they know that wasn't our best performance. They know what needs to be better. We've discussed that already, and then it's out of the way. You know, it's as simple as that. Edmonton is a different opponent, and we get prepared for them coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah, and a lot of focus, understandably, is on Toronto, but obviously it's important to stay focused on the next match, I would assume.
Yeah, the most important match is Edmonton. Toronto will be a focus on Wednesday of next week. Up until now it's 3 points against Edmonton. That's the most important thing. Once we get past that, that's always been our motto around here. We'll get ready for that next match that'll be against Toronto.
Yeah, training, let's say it was very intense this week. Heated at times, but not not in a bad way, in a way that guys look angry, but like an angry that that they know they can play better and that they want to play better and they don't want to lose, and especially not lose in the way they did. It's a good sign. It was a very intense practice this week, and it shows how much the guys care. It's what you're looking for as a coach for sure. And I caught up with the keeper who I said this. It's not often that a team can lose 3-0, and after the match, we're talking about how good the keeper was. Tristan Henry was really good against Montreal. Unfortunately, he didn't have a ton of help. He made some really big saves and avoided a bigger gap in that final score. And I was able to catch up with Tristan Henry, and he talked about the fact that training has been intense this week, as it should be.
There's a lot of intensity today. You can say that. I feel like maybe we lacked that on Wednesday, so guys tried to bring it today, and hopefully we can build on that for our next game.
And I guess it's a good sign. I mean, guys care, right?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we left a lot out on the field there, and we could have shown a lot more, so we just want to show it now.
Yeah, and going into this match now, you don't want to call anything must-win this early in the season, but it's certainly a game you guys want 3 points.
Yeah, I think we want to build off, like I said, our last performance, and we got to go down to Edmonton. We know we have a big game coming up after them, so we have to take care of business here and then focus on Toronto FC.
Yeah, is that coach called it maybe like the first half of football Forge has ever played, that last game. How do you want to learn from that, but you also want to kind of burn it and move ahead? How do you balance the learning and also looking ahead to the next match?
Yeah, I think you want to put it in the back of your mind, but you still have to watch video and look at things we could have done better and things we did bad, and we have to build on that because support, we don't want to make those same mistakes and make sure that half doesn't appear again during the season.
Okay. And lastly, just some challenges in facing Edmonton on Tuesday that you might face.
Yeah, they're a tough team. They sit in a low block. I think we even found it difficult breaking them down last game. So, and it's tough to play over there. We've always struggled, and I think struggled against Edmonton in general. So it's an important game, and we're going to have to go over there and take care of business.
Joining us on the Forge Audio Network is Adam Jenkins. He's a play-by-play announcer with One Soccer. And he joins us now. Adam, thanks.
Oh, thanks for having me. I always love talking CPL.
Yeah, when we have these windows of the Canadian Championship, it's always kind of a nice measuring stick for the Canadian Premier League and how they match up against Major League Soccer clubs. Did we learn anything during these matches over the last couple of weeks?
In Forge's case specifically, I don't know how much stock we can put into what happened last night. They were just beat. Like, that is, Bobby Smyrniotis called the first half the worst first half in club history. I don't think that's a stretch. They came out, they knew what they needed to do. I don't think we expected 10 changes for Wilfred Nancy yesterday, but we knew there's going to be a lot of rotation. And look, we don't want to rub salt in the wounds. It does make it a bit more of a tough pill to swallow, especially when we showed the shot of the one Sweden. You got Wanyama, Kyoto, Johnston, Kamal Miller up there, and you're like, okay, this is not CF Montreal's best team, but they made their home grass their advantage, and they always do that. Stade Saputo is so hard for any team to go into play, regardless of level. Whether it's like MLS Cup could be there, and you would give the edge to them because they've just been so dominant there. But the Forge started slow, and before they knew it, Henry made a great stop. I thought that was going to either pick everybody up because it was a flat, low energy outing from them, but there was just nothing that we saw from Forge at Halifax where that was the best we've seen them. And then a few days later, it was the worst we've seen them. And it was always going to be a tough game, but I don't know that you learned anything from that, good or bad, because when TFC comes to Tim Hortons Field for the Canadian Championship final, which is bizarre to have just been eliminated from one tournament, but you're still up for the Voyageurs Cup, it's going to be very different. And Forge is going to use Tim Hortons Field to their advantage. I think it's going to be a great crowd. I checked Ticketmaster the other day, and it looks like tickets are doing really well. There is still some available. I really think you got to get there if you're in the Greater Toronto Hamilton area, but Forge will look more like themselves in that match, especially knowing it's 90 minutes and the Voyageurs Cup is theirs. We've seen them make so much CPL history. To be the first CPL side to win the Canadian Championship, I think, is the biggest carrot they can have.
You mentioned Tristan Henry. It's not often you can say, a keeper played really well after giving up 3 goals, but he actually did. I mean, he made some really big saves. That score was maybe even a little flattering for Forge, which is saying a lot. And it just, you could see the frustration in Coach Bobby after and the players. And I mean, I'm not sure what happened, but in a lot of ways, it's kind of it's a wake up call, to be able to have maybe your best performance. Well, no, your best performance of the season and then your worst of all time, almost back to back. It's a nice kind of reminder that as dominant as Forge have been, the parity is increasing every year in the CPL. They're not getting the results they want against MLS clubs, and so there's still some work to do. And Coach Bobby is, as well as I do. I'm sure that he's gonna make sure that that doesn't happen again, especially when Toronto makes their trip to Tim Hortons Field, I would think.
Yeah, there was one moment our cameras caught right after Ibrahim's third. They go to the bench and he looks at Kit. He's got his hands on his chin and he just sort of does that like I don't know if sarcastic's the right word, but the little shake of the head like we made plans. We started the half well. Like they came out on the front foot, which is exactly what they needed to do in the first half.
Right.
And then Matko Miljevic, excuse me, puts in the best cross of the day from the set piece, and they were just beat again by the same guy. Um, yeah, it was one. It was tough. To be honest, I was a little disappointed in the players, just body language. I think at one point there was 15, 20 minutes in, and CF Montreal was dominating possession so much, and not even in a Forge like you can have the ball. We'll defend because they had their struggles there too. But Emery Welshman has hands on his hips, and the body language just looked tired and defeated. And that was like 20 minutes into the match. And I think when you go down so quick, to be fair, the second goal comes when Matusel is out. He was a massive loss to go down so early. And Montreal did have the numbers advantage. And before they could even get Malik into the match, there was a second one against them. So it was just it was uncharacteristic, I think, of them. The body language, the energy levels, and Tristan Henry, for as good as he was doing his best to keep the boys in it, it was just tough night. And I think that's all it comes down to. Tough night at the office.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. So as we go forward now, Forge obviously depleted on defense. That's been the story all season for them, and it got even worse, if that's possible, with Matusala. So what's interesting though is defending hasn't really been a weak point for Forge, not in league play anyway. They've actually guys have stepped in, playing out of position, and they've been able to kind of fill those holes. It's the attack that's looked inconsistent, which is not something we're used to seeing with Forge. The creativity's there, the buildup is there, but that final third, that final touch in the final third just has been lacking. It came out against Halifax, and then it was lacking again. What do you make of the inconsistencies just up front with that? That final extra touch just hasn't been there.
Yeah, it's tough because we haven't seen Forge with everyone available, and I think they're still so different. Having said that, Taron Campbell, when he gets to be an out and out number 9 and play in that position, he's different. And if there was a way that they could have Casillas and Campbell together and be able to make some adjustments as the match goes on, I still think that's the best way forward for them. Tristan Borges will tell you he's not happy with where his plays at because he has more to offer. And it's still, the club's still trying to build this particular season's chemistry. And then when you have, like, I cannot wait to see Ashnodi Janssen, Becker, and Hijab Rapour together more often. And then you have the depth in terms of, do you want to start Choinière today? Do you want to start Welshman today? Do you want to start Borges today? And then that is a very particular group of players who are similar in skill set, with the exception of Welshman not quite having the pace of the other two. It's just, and you're missing so many, like, it's a different team when you have more speed and Grant. It's a different team when Krutzen's there, not letting anything behind him. And I thought it was a little bit funny, and one of the best chances that Forge had yesterday, and not to stay on the defeat for too long, it was the final minute or two of the first half where Ashnodi Janssen was attacking. He was just somehow found himself up after set piece, and he got aggressive, but he picked his moment as he always does, and he had one of the best scoring chances, and he was the deepest lying player on the pitch. So he makes a difference when he can play a little bit more advanced. I'm still not convinced like Becker is fully over what had kept him out for a match and a half. I think he just, there's something quite not right with him. And it just hasn't been Bobby's team in the way Bobby wants to play them yet. And now, with the exception of the final, and you would love almost if that was if we could delay that another month to get some players healthy, but their season is the CPL now, and they can stay in the race, which they will, even if things go wrong, which I can't imagine a world where things go terribly wrong for Forge. They're going to be in the hunt to the very end, and then you give Forge two semifinals, two-legged tie, home and away, and then a one-match winner-take-all final. You still can't take them out, whether you're a Forge fan or whether you're a York United fan that doesn't want to see them in the playoffs again. They're going to be there. They're that strong, and we're still waiting for the announcement of what the extra berth for the Canadian Premier League and the new CONCACAF Champions League format will be. So, of course, they want to contend for what would be the CPL's version of the Supporters' Shield. But assuming that the carrot or the reward for the team that wins the North Star Shield this season, if Forge can do it for a third time, they can be right back in continental competition again, and they'll have the added benefit of just playing Cruz Azul this season and being able to raise the stakes again. So they're going to be fine. Where I boil that down to, we haven't seen Forge at their best, and you don't want to make excuses. Bobby Smyrniotis, Kitslodopoulos, they don't want to make it either. The players don't want to hear them, but ultimately they're playing a little bit shorthanded, and that's going to be the case for another month or so.
Yeah, it's, the old saying in sports where things are never as bad or as good as they seem. I mean, that you couldn't have had two better examples in Forge's last two games. And Bobby said we're almost going into Edmonton, or playing Edmonton next. He essentially called it a must-win game. So you can assume he's going to have his guys ready for that. And then for Toronto, Adam Jenkins, I know you're doing a lot of work. You're doing a lot of different things. Anywhere we can see you this week, what are you up to?
I'll have a couple of days off, and then back in the CPL for a couple matches. We have the Canadian men's and women's national teams coming up, so looking forward to those as well. The friendly, especially the women in Korea at BMO, is going to be a great time. I'm looking forward to that, especially with how big their summer is. So, ironically, this is one of the low points in my week in terms of scheduling. So I get a bit of time off to prepare for just a couple CPL matches this weekend. But if it's on One Soccer, I'm around there somewhere, and then at Adam K. Jenkins on Twitter.
Awesome. Adam Jenkins, one of the best voices in Canadian soccer, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. I'm jealous.
Appreciate that.
As a former
that is my
guy,
university education paying off. That's always good to hear.
As a former radio guy, I'm very, very jealous of that voice. All right, Adam, thanks so much for doing this.
Cheers, anytime.
All right, that's going to do it for the Focus on Forge this week. Keep it locked onto the Forge Audio Network. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. You can also subscribe on YouTube and get all the Forge content you need on social media and on the official website of Forge FC. Until next time, I'm Anthony Urciuoli. We'll talk to you soon.